Secretary of the Republic of the Gambia, representing Honorable Dauda A. Jallow, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia.
That will conclude this session with the closing ceremony taking place today here in Banjul, the Gambia, the headquarters of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and which ceremony has been live streamed in all.
Cérémonie est diffusée dans les 4 langues de l'Union africaine. Je m'appelle Abiola. Nous allons commencer avec la lecture du communiqué final.
Safa. This will be followed by the statement of the Honorable Chairperson of the African Commission. And after that, we will invite His Excellency the Solicitor General and Legal Secretary of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, the closing statement, after which session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights officially closed. The closing ceremony will be followed immediately by a press conference that will take place in this room. I now call upon Honorable Commissioner Selma Sassi Safa to read the final communique of the 81st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. You have the floor, Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you, Executive Secretary. Good morning, all participants. All protocols duly observed. I will read out the final communique of the 81st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights held in Banjul, the Republic of the Gambia, from 17th October to 6 November 2024. In accordance with Article 64, Paragraph 2 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, read in conjunction with Rules 27 of its Rules of Procedure of 2020, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights held its 81st Public Ordinary Session from 17th October to 6 November 2024 in Banjul, the Republic of the Gambia. The opening ceremony of the session took place on 17th of October 2024 at the Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center. It was presided over by His Excellency Honorable Dawda A. Jallo, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, as well as Honorable Commissioner Remy Ngoy Lumbu, Chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The proceedings of the session were chaired by Honorable Commissioner Remy Ngoy Lumbu, Chairperson of the Commission, assisted by the Vice Chairperson, Honorable Commissioner Janet Ramotulai Salanjai. The following members of the Commission participated in the session: Honorable Commissioner Remy Ngoy Lumbu, Chairperson, Honorable Commissioner Janet Ramotulai Salanjai, Vice Chairperson, Honorable Commissioner Solomon Aile Derso, Honorable Commissioner Hatem Esayem, Honorable Commissioner Maria Teresa Manuela, Honorable Commissioner Marie-Louise Abomo, Honorable Commissioner Idrissa Sow, Honorable Commissioner Lita Musiemi Ogana, and Honorable Commissioner Selma Safsi Safer. Honorable Commissioner Mutford Zakaria Mwandenga and Honorable Commissioner Urvina Gerisha Topsitono participated virtually in the private segment of the session. Key addresses were delivered at the opening ceremony by Mrs. Anna Foster, Executive Director of the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies, speaking on behalf of the NGO Forum's Steering Committee. Mr. Joseph Whittle, representing the network of national human rights institutions. His Excellency Olof Skov, European Union Special Representatives for Human Rights. Mr. Christian Mukosa, representative of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Liberia, representing His Excellency Mr. Volker Turk, High Commissioner for Human Rights, Honorable Jean-Marie Nibirantije, Chairperson of the Pan-African Parliament's Committee on Justice and Human Rights, His Excellency Rasul Eldelkhal, Deputy Commissioner for Human Rights, for Humanitarian Action and Relations with the Civil Society, Islamic of the state parties. Honorable Commissioner Remy Ngoy Lumbu, Chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Director, Governance and Conflict Prevention Directorate at the African Union Commission, representing His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Muhammad, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and finally, Honorable Dauda A. Jallo, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, who provided the opening address. All the statements made during the opening ceremony can be consulted on the Commission's website, the website of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. A total of 631 delegates attended the session, including 122 representatives of 28 states, 11 representatives of the AU organs, 2 representatives of the regional economic communities, 27 representatives of international and intergovernmental organizations, 45 representatives of national human rights institutions, 372 representatives of African and international NGOs, 12 representatives of press and media organizations, and finally, 40 officials from the Secretariat of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Representatives of 15 state parties, namely South Africa, Algeria, Angola, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Egypt, Eritrea, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mauritania, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tunisia, Rwanda, and Zimbabwe made statements on the human rights situation in their respective countries. Representatives of 6 national human rights institutions with affiliate status with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights made statements on the human rights situation in their respective countries, namely the National Human Rights Commissions of South Human Rights Commission of Burkina Faso, Independent National Human Rights Commission of Burundi, the National Human Rights Commission of Cameroon, the National Human Rights Commission of Ethiopia, and finally the National Human Rights Commissions of Malawi. The network of African national human rights institutions also made a statement on the human rights situation. 87 non-governmental organizations that have observer status with the African Commission made statements on the human rights situation in Africa. Egypt, Eritrea, Eswatini, Lesotho, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tunisia, and Zimbabwe exercise their right to reply on the human rights situation. The session also commemorated the African Human Rights Day, celebrated on 21st October 2024, under the African Union theme, I quote, "Educate an African fit for the 21st century," end of quote. In commemoration of this day, the Commission, in collaboration with its partners, organized a joint colloquium on the realization of economic, social, and cultural rights in Africa, with a particular focus on the right to education. During the public session, several panels were convened on various themes with the aim of strengthening the promotion and the protection of human rights on the African continent. Number one, a panel on the African guiding principles on the human rights of all migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Number two, a panel on the protection and promotion of law reforms relating to the freedom of association and assembly in Africa. Number three, panel on the celebration of the entry into force of the rights of persons and disabilities in Africa, the protocol on the rights of persons with disabilities in Africa, and sensitization for the entry into force of the protocol on the rights of older persons in Africa. Number four, a panel on upholding the Mendes principles in Africa, enhancing safeguards through effective interviewing. Another panel, number five, on the role of education and training in the prevention of torture, ill treatment, and violence in Africa. Number six, a panel on economic, social, and cultural rights in Africa and national development plans. A panel also on the presentation of the World Report on Women deprived of freedom in the criminal justice system. A panel on the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Luanda Guidelines. Number nine, a panel on the impact of Article 59 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the communications procedure of the African Commission. A panel on the 50th anniversary of the entry into force of the OAU Convention on Refugees, Challenges and Prospects. Another panel was a discussion to present the United Nations Working Group on Enforced or Involuntarily Disappearances report on the visit to the African Union judicial and human rights organs and other sub-regional bodies. A panel also on the critical minerals and artificial intelligence in Africa, a panel on the human rights in public opinion, a panel on Agenda 23 of the African Union and human rights, the way forward, and finally, number 15, the panel on hosting the sessions of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The Commission also launched the following documents. Number one, a study on the human rights impact of law enforcement on asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants in Africa. Number two, the CPEA newsletter 24 on the role of education and training in the prevention of torture in Africa. And finally, number three, the 17th edition of the newsletter entitled Police and Human Rights, Reflections on 10 Years of the Luanda Guidelines. The Commission further reviewed the state of its relations and cooperation not only with the NHRI, National Human Rights Institutions, but also NGOs, and also on the submission of their activity reports. The Commission also presented the status of state party reporting, highlighting that 10 countries are up to date, 5 countries are in the review cycle, 10 countries have one overdue report, 3 countries have 2 overdue reports, 1 country has 3 overdue reports, 19 countries have more than 3 overdue reports, and 6 countries have not yet submitted their initial report. The Commission also considered the periodic report the 5th to the 7th of Burkina Faso, as well as the periodic report, the 8th to the 9th of the Republic of Angola, under the African Charter on People's Rights, the Maputo Protocol on the Rights of Women, and the Kampala Convention on Internally Displaced Persons. Members of the Commission of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights also presented their intersection activity reports, highlighting the activities undertaken in their capacity as commissioners, commissioner rapporteur, and mandate holders of the special mechanisms of the Commission. The reports were available. The presentation led to various reactions, contributions, and questions from state delegates, NHRIs, and also representatives of the civil society organizations. All the reports presented by the commissioners are available on the internet website of the African Commission. During the private session, the Commission assessed the conduct of the public segment of the 84th Ordinary Session of the African Commission. Members of the Commission and Secretariat staff participated in a training and induction session on the Commission strategic plan, the annual work plan, results-based management, reporting and budgeting of the Commission. In accordance with its resolution on criteria for granting and maintaining observer status to NGOs working in the human and people's rights sector in Africa, the Commission granted observer status to 8 NGOs, namely, number 1, Alliance of Women Advocating for Change, AWAC; number 2, INWA Advocacy; number 3, South African Human Rights Defenders Network; Association Congolaise contre l'impunité and pour le développement, ACOSID; number 5, Caritas Development Bukavu; number 6, Groupe de Recherche Action sur la Sécurité Humaine; African International Christian Ministry; and finally, number 8, Centre Action pour le Développement. To date, the total number of non-governmental organizations which have observer status with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights is 579, whilst 38 national human rights institutions have from Commission level. The Commission rejected and closed 21 applications for observer status, of which 17 were for failure to submit additional files for consideration with a view to their consideration, and 4 were from organizations not registered in a state party. These decisions by the Commission were taken in accordance with Resolution 572 of 2023 on the criteria for granting and maintaining observer status for non-governmental organizations working in the sector of human and people's rights in Africa. During this same private session, the Commission considered and adopted the following reports and documents. The report of the chairperson on intersession oversight activities, the report on follow-up actions and decisions from the 88th Ordinary Session, the report of the Secretariat on the administrative seizures of communications, report on the communications audit narrative, report of the chairperson of the working group communications, the 56th and 57th combined activity reports of the African Commission, the report of the Advisory Committee on Budgetary and Staff Matters, the report on the implementation of the 2024 Annual Work Plan at the third quarter, and finally, the report of the Executive Secretary to the Commission. The Commission also considered and adopted reports of promotion missions conducted in the Kingdom of Lesotho and also to the United Republic of Tanzania. The Commission considered and took note of the following document. Number one, the concept note for the joint retreat of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Secondly, a paper on the AGA initiative, African Governance Architecture, to harmonize the presentation and consideration of periodic reports by the African Union bodies working on matters of democracy, governance, and human rights. The Commission considered 8 communications, 3 communications on admissibility, of which 2 were declared admissible and 1 inadmissible, 2 communications on the merits, which were adopted, 1 communication which was withdrawn by the complainant, and finally, 2 communications requiring guidance, which were also considered. Members of the African Commission also received a briefing on the developments on application number 006/12, African Commission on Human and People's Rights versus the Republic of Kenya. The Commission also adopted 14 resolutions on the reconstitution, extension, and renewal of the mandates of its special mechanisms. The resolutions are as follows. The resolution on the renewal of the mandate and reconstitution of the Committee for the Prevention of Torture in Africa and the appointment of its members. Number 2, the resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on prisons, conditions of detention, and policing in Africa. Resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the freedom of expression and access to information in Africa. The resolution on the extension of the mandate of the Advisory Committee on Budgetary and Staff Matters to include supervision of audit functions. Resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Advisory Committee on Budgetary and Personal Matters. Resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Working Group on Communications, the resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the rights of women in Africa, the resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on human rights defenders and focal points on reprisals in Africa, the resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Working Group on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights in Africa, and the resolution on the renewal of the mandate and reconstitution of the Working Group on extractive industries, the environment, and human rights violations in Africa. The resolution on the renewal of the mandate of certain expert members of the Committee for Protection of the Rights of People living with HIV, people at risk, vulnerable, affected by HIV. The resolution on the renewal of the mandate of certain members of the Working Group on indigenous populations or communities and minorities in Africa. The resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Working Group on the death penalty, extrajudicial, summary, or arbitrary executions, and enforced disappearances in Africa. And finally, the resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the support group of the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders and focal point on reprisals in Africa for the promotion and effective implementation of the guidelines on freedom of association and assembly in Africa. The Commission adopted, furthermore, 5 country-specific resolutions as follows. The resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Joint Fact-Finding Mission to the Republic of Sudan, the resolution on the impact of sanctions on the realization of human rights in Zimbabwe. Number 3, the resolution on the pre- and post-electoral instability in Mozambique, the resolution on the situation of human rights defenders working on environmental issues in Uganda, and finally, the resolution on the situation in Palestine and the occupied territories. The Commission also adopted 8 of the following thematic resolutions as follows. Number 1, the resolution on the United Nations General Assembly biannual vote calling for a moratorium on the use of the death penalty, the resolution on the promotion of the use of indigenous languages as a means of learning and communication in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, ACFTA. The resolution in preparation for the theme of African Union for 2025, namely justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations, end of quote, through consultations on Afro-descendants, indigenous ethnic ancestry, reparations, and the 6th region of the African Union. A resolution on the entry into force and implementation of protocols on the rights of older persons and persons living with disabilities in Africa. A resolution on the drafting of a general comment on Article 26 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The resolution on the promotion and harnessing of access to data as a tool for the promotion of human rights and sustainable development in the digital age, a resolution on the protection and promotion of the rights of communities discriminated by work and descent in Africa, and finally, the resolution on the creation of the Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela African Human Rights Scholarship in recognition of his legacy. The Commission announces the entry into force on 6 November 2024 of the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of older persons in Africa. The Commission decided to convene an extraordinary session from the 2nd to the 6th December 2004 in Dakar, Senegal. The Commission also decided to hold virtually its 82nd private ordinary session from 25th February to 11th of March 2025. Details of the next ordinary session will be published on the internet site of the Commission in due course. The African Commission expresses its sincere gratitude to state parties, AU organs, to international and intergovernmental organizations, to national human rights institutions, to non-governmental organizations, and all other stakeholders who participated in this ordinary session. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights also expressed its profound gratitude to His Excellency Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, to the government and the people of the Republic of the Gambia for having enabled the Commission to hold the 81st Public Ordinary Session in the Gambia and for all the facilities made available for the successful conduct of the session. The closing ceremony of the 84th Ordinary Session took place on the 6th of November 2024 at the Sir Dauda Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center in Banjul, the Republic of the Gambia, done in Banjul on the 6th of November 2024. I thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Abiola, for giving me the floor. Excellency Dauda A. Jallow, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, represented by Honorable Hussein Tomasi, Solicitor General and the Legal Secretary of the Ministry of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, distinguished delegates of AU member states, distinguished representatives of the organs of the African Union, Honorable Madam Vice Chair of the Commission, and Honorable Commissioners, representatives of intergovernmental and international organizations, representatives of national human rights institutions, representatives of civil society, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, and good morning. This exercise has always been an honor for me, and it would forever be an honor for me as long as I have the capacity to do it. So I would like to use this opportunity to reiterate on behalf of all the honorable commissioners and on my own behalf our sincere gratitude to His Excellency Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, and to the people of Gambia for the reception and the hospitality extended to the participants at the session for 21 days. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, during this session, we had the opportunity to review the human rights situation on the continent thoroughly, as we normally do, with positive developments and areas of concern, which I had the singular yesterday of presenting within the framework of an interactive dialogue with the members of the Pan-African Parliament who invited us to participate in this exercise. The session also provided an opportunity for all the participants to participate in important themes under varied teams, sometimes chaired by honorable commissioners, member states or national human rights institutions, and by civil society organization, or on the initiative, all the members of the panel enabled us to clarify a lot of great gray areas regarding the various themes that are on the agenda of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. One of the most important is the one mentioned by Commissioner Sassi, that is the panel on the organization of the sessions of the Commission, and I'll come back to that. This session also provided an opportunity for us to have the periodic reports of state and what I now describe as African Periodic Review. That is the Continental Periodic Review. And on the conviction that member states rush to Geneva when they talk of the Universal Periodic Review. But when they have to come to Banjul to present their periodic report, a lot of states do not come. And during this session, during which we had the African Periodic Review, we had two states, the Republic of Angola and Burkina Faso, which presented their reports under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and under the Maputo Protocol and under the Kampala Convention. So I would like to express the gratitude of our institution to the governments of the two countries that presented their report with a considerable delegation which came here to present their report. I know what I'm talking about because in recent past, we've had reports presented by a very small delegation and sometimes even by one or two persons. And so this shows the importance that we attach to this procedure in Africa. This session also provided us the opportunity to go through the reports of the honorable commissioners on their respective activities during the intercession period. And you had the opportunity of interacting with them, posing questions, and they also provided response to the questions that you posed. And Commissioner Sassi has already stated that all these reports are on the website, so do not hesitate to consult our website. And if you have more questions, then continue to interact with the special mechanisms because they were not set apart for interaction only during our sessions, but throughout the period. And recommendations also were made vis-a-vis states and other stakeholders. And the recommendations which we make can only be relevant if together, and as human rights is a collective endeavor, if we follow up on these recommendations we make recommendations because we hope that they would follow up on the recommendations. Otherwise, for 40 years, we will not have done anything if we don't implement the recommendations. And for 10 days, we had a private session which was rich in terms of activity and rich in analysis, and you didn't participate in that session, but several more important themes which could not be discussed in the public session were thoroughly discussed by the commissioners, and several decisions in the forms of recommendations were adopted in terms of the themes as well as in terms of communication that as indicated in our final communique, which we adopted and which highlighted the communications adopted and admitted and those that were not admitted. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to insist that we also organize a 2-day colloquium on the AU theme of the year, Educating African Fit for the 21st Century, and building a resilient education system for increased access to inclusive, sustainable, quality, and relevant learning in Africa. If we love Africa, then we have to provide worthy education to the youth of Africa. Maybe the youth here who are here in the next 50 years, some of them may not be here, but what would we do with our respective countries if we neglect education from primary school up to the university? And most of the constitutions have enshrined free education, and that is the way to go. Most countries have tried, and I want to affirm the example that I know, which I'm very familiar with, is that of my own country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which after introducing free education, boosted education from 30 to 60%. Ladies and gentlemen, the closing of this session coincides with the entry into force of the African Protocol on Human and People's Rights on the rights of the elderly. The African Commission, through the Honorable Commissioner Marisa Louise Abomo, has shown her mettle, and we've had 33 ratifications. Now that this protocol has entered into force, we'll move on to another stage. So let us work to ensure that ratification, domestication, and implementation become a reality. And sometimes I've even doubt about the word implementation in French, and we should say enforcement. So let us also ensure that we ratify the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights relating to the rights of citizens, to social protection and social security, and the protocol on specific aspects of the right to nationality and the eradication of statelessness in Africa by the African Union. And that is possible. The African Commission works and uses the same method used regarding the protocol relating to older persons, and we can hope that in the next 3 years we can ensure the entry into force of this protocol. And I believe that in this area, the Commission has the necessary proven expertise, and we can count on the openness and the support of states so that this text enters into force. And why not? We should even work on the Maputo Protocol, which has not received the universal ratification, by using the same method. And even why not our own charter, which is the basic instrument which has not been ratified by all member states. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, for this session, and in order not to go too far, I would like to thank all my colleagues who worked tirelessly. Some of them have been here in Banjul since the 10th, and they've been here for more than 21 days so that we can ensure human rights being promoted and protected in Africa. But they go back, they are tired, but they are determined to serve this continent. So let us work together for the love of this continent, because they are convinced that if they don't do that, no one will do that at their place. And there are dark forces that are stalking and that do not want this institution to be successful. But we shall always be here and we'll continue to work. So I would like to thank all the commissioners with specific recommendation on the theme of the year. We'll work on it next year. The African Union has already chosen the theme. It's about justice and reparation for persons of African descent. The 6th region of Africa is not a pious wish. It exists. The diaspora exists. So let us organize this as one of the countries of Africa, all those who are outside, who were taken as slaves and who are in other parts of the world, for those outside who were compelled to also go there because they had to seek refuge. All the CIS region, all these people are covered by the African Union and by the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, should extend its jurisdiction to cover these people because they are part of the African jurisdiction. And I would also like to thank the commissioners and the interpreters in the booth, the translators, and all the technicians of the Dawda Jaro International Conference Center for their efforts to ensure that we are able to work without any problem. But it will be remiss on my part to end my remarks without focusing on one issue which is very important, which is the complementarity between the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and then the court in Arusha. In 2017, when most of the commissioners here, when they came, there was a problem, but efforts of the commissioners have resulted in a situation where we now have effective cooperation between the commission and then the court. And we've referred 3 cases from the commission to the court currently, and we need to work. The 2 organs are working to ensure the smooth implementation of the Malabo Protocol, because this cooperation desired between the court and the commission is a reflection of the will of state themselves. And lastly, I want to say a word about reporting fatigue, which states mentioned during the pre-forum of states, which we had during this session. And I know that the AGA platform, APSA platform, are looking at a single report, and this poses problem technically and legally. So it's premature to indicate what that will look at like. But we can also raise questions empirically about its relevance. But if that is the wish of African states, then we would comply with that. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, these are my final words, which I want to deliver during the closing of the 81st session of the African Commission. I thank you.
It is now my pleasure to invite His Excellency the Solicitor General and Legal Secretary at the Attorney General's Chambers and Ministry of Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Hussein Tomasi, to deliver the closing statement on behalf of His Excellency the Honorable Minister of Justice, and to declare the 81st Ordinary Session officially closed. You have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Madam Abiola Ojo, Executive Secretary of the African Commission. Your Excellency, Honorable Chairperson of the African Commission, Excellency Remingo Lumbu, Your Excellency Madam Janet Ramatulai Salanjai, Vice President of the African Commission, Your Excellencies, Commissioners of the African Commission, the Honorable Justice Amina Saho-Sise, Justice of the Court of Appeal, representing the Chief Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, Excellency Executive Secretary of the African Commission, Madam Abiola Ojo, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, representatives of human rights institutions and NGOs, members of the press, members of the security services, the Director General of Immigration, ably represented here by Mr. Jahate, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As we conclude the 81st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, I'm deeply honored to address you on this occasion on behalf of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Dawda Jallow. And I wish to extend a heartfelt gratitude to all delegates for your contributions and commitment to advancing human rights across our continent. During our time together, we have not only celebrated the Year of Education, but have also reaffirmed our collective responsibility to empower our youth and strengthen our societies through education for collective development. Education stands as the cornerstone of human rights, enhancing dignity, equality, and opportunity for all. As we have discussed during the sessions, it is essential for the economic and social transformation of Africa. Our commitment to ensuring that every child has access to quality education, irrespective of background, is a fundamental aspect of our mission. This session has underscored the urgent human rights challenges we face as a continent. Issues such as access to quality education, employment opportunities, poverty alleviation, and sustainable development are all critical for our progress and have been examined thoroughly. We must, however, prioritize education as a means to empower our citizens and empower them with necessary skills to navigate these challenges. Investing in education is not merely a pathway to individual success, it is a foundational element for national development and social cohesion. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the government of the Gambia is deeply committed to the principles of human rights and education for all. As a country, we are taking concrete steps to strengthen our educational systems, ensuring they are inclusive and cater to the diverse needs of our population. Our Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is promoting vocational education and training as a vital means to enhance skills development. And through these programs, we aim to empower individuals with practical skills that foster economic growth and improve employment opportunities within our country. We recognize that the future of Africa hinges on our ability to equip our youth with the necessary skills to thrive in a competitive world. Our goal is to ensure that there is free and affordable education for every child in the Gambia, enabling them to reach their full potential and contribute to the socio-economic and political development of our nation and the continent at large. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, armed conflicts and violence continue to be major contributors to human rights violations on the continent and in the countries which are embroiled in long-standing conflicts that have resulted in massive human rights suffering. Civilians often bear the brunt of these conflicts, facing displacement, sexual violence, abductions, and killings. We have witnessed the rise of extremist groups like Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and various Islamic State affiliates, ISIS, that have further destabilized local communities on the continent. It is rather a very saddening situation that this has now seriously impacted educational development on the continent. These groups commit atrocities against civilians, including targeted attacks on schools, markets, and places of worship. women and children are particularly vulnerable, often subjected to forced marriages, sexual slavery, and recruitment as child soldiers. The right to development and the empowerment of our youth are paramount for our continent. As we recognize the vibrant potential of our youth, who comprise a significant portion of Africa's population, it is imperative that we invest in their education and confront these challenges that we see all over the continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on our discussions, let me emphasize the importance of the intergenerational dialogue that we commemorated. You will recall that we commemorated the 25th anniversary of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Women in Africa. This milestone event not only celebrated our progress, but also highlighted the tireless efforts of women leaders and activists who have championed the rights of women and girls across generations. The theme of this commemoration, building bridges across generations, empowering women and girls through education for sustainable development, encapsulates our shared mission for a just and equitable society across generations. Through targeted initiatives such as the Girls Education Trust Fund and scholarship programs for disadvantaged children, Gambia have made significant advances in promoting gender equality in education. We are witnessing a growing number of Gambian girls completing secondary school education and pursuing higher learning opportunities. These efforts are not simply about numbers, they are about transforming lives. When we empower girls with the tools of education, we unlock their potential to become leaders, innovators, and agents of change in their communities. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we work towards realizing the Africa we want in line with Agenda 2063, it is essential for member states to collaborate in enhancing educational systems. This includes investing in teacher training, developing relevant curricula, and leveraging technology to make education more accessible. By empowering our youth through education, we will not only fulfill our commitment to human rights, but will also be laying the groundwork for a prosperous, stable, and unified Africa. Some of the continental initiatives on education, such as the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, launched by the African Union, must be encouraged and strengthened. CESA, as it is called, you would recall, addresses key challenges such as access, quality, equity, and relevance of education, and emphasizes the importance of TVET and STEM. STEM here meaning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we draw the curtains on this 84th session, let us remember that the bridges we build today must be strong enough to support future generations. The initiatives discussed here reflect our firm belief that by investing in women and girls, we are laying the foundation for sustainable development across the continent. We will continue to build bridges across generations, fostering a culture of empowerment and sustainable development that benefits all members of our society. Together, let us ensure that our educational systems are resilient and responsive to the needs of the continent and the 21st century. In the last 2 weeks, we have witnessed very interesting deliberations and many side events alongside the 84th session. Very interesting indeed, touching on the fight against impunity, the need to develop a treaty, and the need also to develop a treaty on the torture trade, among others. And never before have we witnessed so many side events along the 81st century. All this go to reinforce that human rights is taking deep roots in the Gambia and on the African continent. Having said that, on behalf of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Dawda Jallow, I would like to thank all of you for your invaluable contributions and engagement throughout this session. May your efforts continue to pave the way for a brighter future for all Africans. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and pleasure on behalf of the Honorable Attorney General, the Honorable Dawda Jallow, to declare this 81st session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights officially closed. I thank you all for your kind attention and wish all delegates a safe travels to your respective destinations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for remarks and for declaring the 81st ordinary session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights officially closed. This draws the curtains on the 21 days of the human rights conversation that has been taking place here in the Gambia. Excellencies, the distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the closing ceremony, and we look forward to you joining us again in the next public ordinary session of the Commission. We will now proceed with the press conference, the post-session press conference, which will take place here in this meeting hall for the next 30 minutes after the high table has exited the room. Thank you all. Merci beaucoup. Obrigada. Shukran jazira. Asante sana. And as we say here at home in Gambia, Jere. Thank you. Tea and coffee will be served. Distinguished participants, tea and coffee will be served right now. I understand that the vouchers will be distributed. Thank you.
Não te vejo, Derso, mas consigo ouvir-te.
So, good morning and a warm welcome to the members of the media, our fourth estate. My name is Samantha Kambole. I'm the head of PR, and we thank you for coming to attend the closing ceremony of the 81st Ordinary Session of the Commission. So how we will proceed in this press conference, I'll start by introducing our honorable commissioners that are joining this session. We have, in the order of seniority, I believe we've got the Vice Chairperson, Honorable Janet Ramatulai Salanjai. We then have Honorable Manuela Teresa, and then we also have Honorable Marie-Louise Abomo. So, how we'll proceed is you will... Is there no translation? Oh, okay. We also recognize and welcome the presence of Honorable Commissioner Selma Sassi. She has also joined the high table. As I was mentioning in terms of the House rules and how we'll proceed, you will have an opportunity to introduce yourself, the media house that you are representing today, and then proceed to ask a question. I will have 3 rounds for questions. Please, can I ask that we try and observe protocol? We have 30 minutes for this conference. So I will start the first round of questions. You introduce yourself, the name of the media house, and you proceed to ask a question. Thank you. You can use the speakers at the table or the microphones like this one. Thank you. We may commence. Honorable Commissioners, thank you very much for joining this press conference.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform. I'm Edward Francis Dahlia from Ascanby Media. I want to know what are the mechanisms the Commission is having in mind in consideration of the response of the recommendation that the GPU have highlighted while reading its statement. Can I ask 2 questions?
I'm not too sure I quite got your first question. You were asking what are the mechanisms that the Commission has in relation to?
To the GPU statement recommendation that they have given, the recommendation they have given in their statement. they have given series of recommendations.
Okay.
So what are the mechanism of the commission to respond to those recommendations?
Okay. So you'd like to know what are the mechanisms in response to the GBU
Recommendations.
recommendation?
Yeah.
Could you maybe just give the full name of this acronym, GBU?
Gambia Press Union.
Gambia Press Union. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll take the second question. The gentleman there.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Modu Sar, Daily Gambian newspaper. My question is, as we draw the curtain for the 81st ordinary session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, I want to ask you about what is the overall situation. How is this meeting different from the last one? What benefits have we derived concerning the last meeting?
So if I'm understanding, you want to know what are some of the key highlights that came from the 81st ordinary session in comparison to the last one. Thank you, Daily Gambia.
Okay, my name is Alejandra from the Voice newspaper. My question is similar to his. What are some of the key points of discussion this session, and what are some of the recommendations the Commission came up with?
So some key recommendations from this session. And you are from the Voice. Thank you. Another question? Yes, sir.
I am Babka Travale from the Irua Multimedia. During this session, you have touched on education, which is very key to the session. And considering that you have highlighted a lot of reports and made some recommendations, we want to know what mechanism are you doing to ensure member states abide by what you have talked about, to ensure that every country will have access, or every member state will have access to education. So that is something that we need to, because we understand there are other countries that they are not taking it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. So in your question, you are asking, what are some of the mechanisms that the Commission has put in place to ensure that member states uphold their responsibility in ensuring that education is given to their citizens? If I've paraphrased you correctly. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Korkaba, working for QTV and France 24. My question is, what is the Commission doing about for our brothers and sisters who are migrants in other African countries and their human rights have been violated? Example, like Tunisia, deporting people from Tunisia to the Libyan border. What is the Commission doing to protect those people? And then as far as its African Center for People and Human Rights Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that important question. You're asking what are some of the Commission's response to the issue of migrants, particularly in Tunisia, which has transported some of the migrants to the Libyan border. Okay, so I'll stop here and then I'll give the Honorable Vice Chairperson a right of response.
Thank you very much, honorable members of the press, for attending the closing ceremony, and in particular for attending the press conference being organized at the end of the session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. A lot of questions have been asked, but I believe that if I just give you an idea of the roles and responsibilities of the Commission, what do we do? Because some of the questions are asked, I had somebody mention the center, so that we know that this is not the center. This is the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The Commission is an organ of the African Union. It's not an NGO. It's an organ of the African Union. It's made up of 11 commissioners, drawn from all over the continent, 2 commissioners from each region of Africa, elected by the Executive Council of the African Union. So the commissioner are elected officials and they represent the continent. Today with me, I have Honorable Commissioner Manuela, as has been indicated by the Head of Communications, Maria Teresa Manuela with me, responsible for the mechanism, for prison mechanism and policing in Africa. I also have Honorable Commissioner Marie-Louise Abomo, responsible for the mechanism that actually receives communication, because we receive communications, and she heads that mechanism. Also responsible for the mechanism, responsible for people with disabilities and older persons. A question has been asked about migrants. We have the special rapporteur responsible for migrant and internally displaced person. So at least I'll answer some of the questions, and I'll also allow my colleagues to respond to some of the questions. In terms of the commission, as I indicated, 11 commissioners mandated to monitor the human rights situation in the continent. The commission is established under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, normally referred to as the Banjul Charter, just highlighting the significance of the charter to Gambia and Gambians, because the commission itself is even known as the Banjul Commission, because Banjul is the seat of the headquarters of the commission. It's an AU organ, but the seat of the headquarters is in Banjul. So everybody refers to it as the Banjul Commission. And we are responsible for the promotion and protection of human rights within the continent. People have asked questions about the mechanisms. How do we ensure that we're able to do so? In doing so, we have several mechanisms in the commission. For example, I am the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Women in Africa, responsible for monitoring for the promotion and the protection of the rights of women in the continent. And as I indicated, the other commissioners also have responsibilities in terms of our promotion mission and protection mission. In terms of our protection mission, we receive complaints, that we call communications, from citizens of the continent, especially those who are member states. The good thing about the commission is that out of the 55 member states, countries in Africa, 54 are state parties of the charter. So we have jurisdiction over 54 countries. So complaints that are received from citizens of those countries are deliberated on, and then we have recommendations that we send to the member states. Within the context of the ordinary session, this is the 81st ordinary session. Very significant because it brings together the human rights community in Africa. Because the primary duty bearers for the promotion and protection of human rights in Africa is the state. So the first duty bearer, our first constituency is the state. Member states were here with us. The NGO community are also very important because as 11 commissioners, we each live in our countries. I'm Gambian and I live in the Gambia. Honorable Commissioner Abomo is Cameroonian. She lives in Cameroon. Commissioner Marie-Louise Commissioner Manuela lives in Angola. She's Angolan, she lives in Angola. Commissioner Salma is from Algeria, she lives in Algeria. But the NGO community, they're drawn from all over the continent. So they are our partners. We rely on them in carrying out our promotion, our protection work. At the national level also, we have the national human rights institutions. These are the institutions, state organs established, independent organs established to monitor the promotion and protection of human rights at the national level. So they are also our partners. Intergovernmental bodies also like the UN Human Rights Commission, the European Union are also these are international bodies that are our partners. So when we have our ordinary sessions, all these institutions, all the stakeholders come together to deliberate on the situation of human rights in the continent. A question has been asked about the GPU and its statement. So what happens is NGOs that have observer status in the commission are afforded the opportunity to take the floor during the ordinary session and make pronouncement about the human rights situation in any country in Africa. In this particular instance, there was a statement about the human rights situation in the Gambia as alleged, alleged by the GPU because these are our allegations. So what happens is the mechanism responsible in this instance, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, will receive that statement and engage with it and investigate and engage with the state concerned to verify the allegations made against the state, and if need be, engage in dialogue by sending a letter of urgent appeal to the particular state. These are the mechanisms we have. It could be a press statement issued by the commission itself, because occasionally we do issue press statement. or it could be a letter of urgent appeal to engage with dialogue with the state, to actually call upon the state to verify the facts and also to investigate and to ensure accountability. So these are the mechanisms we have in terms of statements that are made. So that's why you realize that every time a statement is made, the chair, whoever is presiding, will say, the mechanism responsible, the commissioner rapporteur, will engage with you. So that is what we do, you engage. The statements, all the statements will be received. So we don't allow them to just lie fallow. We'll actually engage with them. In terms of the key highlights of the session, somebody asked a question about the key highlights of the session. The key highlights of this session is, as those of you who were in the closing ceremony would have heard the statement made by the Solicitor General on behalf of the Attorney General, and also the final communique that was read by Honorable Commissioner Selma that highlighted all the activities we engaged on during this session. Some of them were within the context of the session, some of them were actually side events that happened during the context of the session. But in terms of highlights, the commissioners, actually each of us, we have responsibility to discharge. And at every session, we give account of the work we've done between one session to another. So somebody's asking, what is the difference? So the difference is that between the 79th session and the 80th session, we'll give account of the work we have done for the promotion and protection of human rights in the continent. Between the 80th session and this 81st session, the commissioners will highlight work they have done. And the human rights community will engage and ask questions and seek clarification on those intersection reports that we present. So it affords the human rights community in Africa to engage with the commissioners. It also ensures that as commissioners, we give account of our stewardship, because you're not just elected for you to be in a commission and not do anything. You're supposed to actually fulfill your role in terms of the mechanism you have responsibility for. So for example, Honorable Commissioner Abomo will give account of an intersection report of activities embarked upon between the 80th and the 81st session, or 79, from one public session to another. And then the human rights community will engage, seek clarification, ask questions, or even amplify or add additional information. So these were the key points. Intersection report by commissioners. Also, there were several panels on several aspects relevant to human rights in the continent. One of you asked about the issue of education. This year, the theme of the AU, to educate an African fit for the 21st century. You find that most of our panels, even though they may deal with other thematic issues, but they'll be centered, giving the connection between the thematic area and education. So there were several panels that were done. But also one of the ways that we monitor human rights at the national level is through the state reporting obligation. States have an obligation to report to the Commission and engage in dialogue to actually highlight how they're implementing their commitments under the Charter. So it's an opportunity to engage in constructive dialogue. So during this session, we received 2 reports. We had a report from Burkina Faso highlighting implementation of the Charter, that's the African Charter, the obligation under the Maputo Protocol, extensively, and we engage in dialogue, we ask them questions, we seek clarification. So we're going to engage with that report and make concluding recommendations to the state in terms of full compliance with their obligations. And where there are shortcomings, we will highlight where the shortcomings are and then task them between this reporting period to the other one to actually show how they're fulfilling those obligations. We also received a report from Angola. Angola actually came with a full delegation to the Commission, headed by a minister and so many directors. And this is the best practice, because this is a treaty body, and it's important that member states actually take their responsibility very seriously in terms of reporting obligation and engaging constructively with the Commission. So in the same vein, we're going to engage, we ask questions, and we're going to make concluding observations, which will state now we expect the state to implement. And what we do in terms of follow-up, how do we ensure that the recommendations we make and the concluding observations we make actually are fulfilled? We do launch promotion missions. Promotion missions allow us to go in country and monitor the human rights situation, raise awareness about the Charter, monitor the situation in the country, and follow up on recommendations that have been made. So these are some of the things that we do to ensure fulfillment of those. recommendation. Also, during the course of this session also, we granted observer status and affiliate status to NGOs. As I indicated, NGOs need to apply for observer status to be accorded that privilege of actually taking the floor of the Commission and highlighting the human rights situation in their respective countries. So we actually deliberated on that, and we granted observer status to several NGOs. Also, during the course of the session also, we adopted several resolutions dealing with the human rights situation in the continent. So these were just a few of the highlights of the fundamental issues that we deliberated on during the session. In terms of education and some of the recommendations and the key recommendations that have been made, we have a dedicated mechanism of the Commission, which is called the ECOSOC Committee. This is the committee that deals with the economic and social rights, and social and cultural rights. And of course, education is one of those rights. So the ECOSOC Committee is going to engage and follow through the recommendations that have been made with state parties, and will actually report back at the next public session of work that they have embarked upon, just like every other mechanism will also do that. So this is what we do in terms of the work we do. In terms of migrants, I would like to offer the opportunity to my colleague, Honorable Commissioner Salma Sase Safa, to share with you. I know she's going to speak in French, but you have to put on your headphones so that you can get the interpretations for the purpose of your reports here. So she will just share with you the challenges and what the Commission has done with regard to migrants in other countries. And here you focus on Tunisia and Libya, and I believe she's also the country rapporteur of Tunisia, but she can throw light on that. And then I'll also ask the other commissioners to supplement the information I've given. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair, for that depth of knowledge sharing in response to the questions asked. I will now, perhaps maybe to members of the media, please plug in for this, and then for English, you would press 1, channel 1. We'll now hand over to Commissioner Salma to respond to the question on migrants.
Merci, Madame la Vice-présidente. Merci, Samantha, de m'avoir accordé la parole. Je tiens à mon tour à souhaiter la bienvenue à l'ensemble des représentants de la presse. La question qui a été posée, justement, concerne les migrants. Je suis Selma Sassi Safer, je suis rapporteur spécial sur les réfugiés, les demandeurs d'asile, les personnes déplacées et les migrants en Afrique. Et justement, pour revenir un petit peu globalement sur la question concernant les migrants en Afrique, nous avons constaté lors de cette période d'intercession que la question des migrants en Afrique reste très préoccupante et que de nombreux, c'est-à-dire que le nombre de migrants soit vers d'autres contrées, c'est-à-dire en dehors de l'Afrique, mais également dans le continent africain, ne cesse d'évoluer. Et ce est dû à de nombreux facteurs, notamment les conflits armés que vit l'Afrique, mais également d'autres questions telles la précarité des conditions socio-économiques, mais également les changements climatiques qui poussent de nombreuses personnes à quitter leur chez eux, soit pour rester dans le pays ou encore aller dans d'autres États. Et justement, ces personnes-là, ces migrants, souvent vont chercher à migrer à la recherche de meilleures conditions de vie, et parfois même parce que c'est la seule solution. Ils n'ont pas le choix. S'ils n'émigrent pas, s'ils ne se réfugient pas ailleurs, ils vont mourir chez eux parce qu'ils ne sont pas en sécurité. Et justement, donc, tous ces migrants, pendant leur parcours migratoire, ils vont emprunter souvent des routes migratoires des plus périlleuses, les plus meurtrières en Afrique. Nous le constatons tous les jours, nous le vivons tous les jours par la Méditerranée, mais également par l'Atlantique, par la mer Rouge, des migrants, des jeunes, des femmes, des enfants qui meurent tous les jours parce qu'ils choisissent tout simplement de survivre, je dirais. Et lors de ce parcours migratoire, les migrants, malheureusement, vont être victimes de beaucoup de violations, de viols, de traite de personnes, de trafic de migrants, de meurtres, et j'en passe, de disparitions forcées. Et malheureusement, ces migrants vont souvent choisir peut-être des États qui eux-mêmes vont s'ériger, je dirais, en véritable forteresse. Avant, on parlait de la forteresse de Schengen, mais maintenant, malheureusement, beaucoup d'États africains s'érigent également face à ces Africains, à leurs frères africains, en véritable forteresse. Pourquoi ? En criminalisant la migration. Le migrant devient un criminel tout simplement parce qu'il va traverser une...
crossing a border illegally. But sometimes this crossing of a border is the only solution for them to survive. And some African states are not going to implement all the fundamental rights of these migrants. They would recognize them. They would commit violations against these migrants, and they would claim that it is for security reasons on the principle of sovereignty. So the African Commission on Human People's Rights tries to encourage and urge states to implement to the letter the legal instruments to strike a balance between the security conditions, which are legitimate, of course, but also based on the respecting for certain fundamental rights of these migrants. And one of the questions that came up was, what can the African Commission on Human People's Rights do to assist these migrants? What can the African Commission do for our migrant brothers in Tunisia who are in Libya? I will maybe not rise up to the challenge, because for the African Commission, we are facing an enormous challenge, an immense challenge, is that everything that emanates from the African Commission is not binding. The decisions that we take at the African Commission, unfortunately, are not binding on states. So we try, as African Commission on Human People's Rights, to establish a dialogue with the states, and we count on their goodwill. We count on their cooperation, and we try to draw their attention to the situations in Tunisia or Libya, what is unfolding, and also in other African states. We publish press releases to draw the attention of states to these violations. We also try to commit with the states through the urgent appeal process. We are directly in touch with the head the authorities to alert them about violations that are unfolding in their states, and we wait for states to react. Some states actually react favorably, but other states would not react immediately. These are a few challenges that migrants in Africa are facing. The African Commission on Human People's Rights also adopts resolutions or studies that are commissioned. These are soft law instruments that are not binding, and they're only here to guide the states so that they have a better understanding or application of the rights of migrants. I want to cite one of the fundamental texts that was drafted in 2023, and which is the African Principles on the Human Rights of All Migrants, Refugees, and Asylum Seekers, and which is a guide for states to assist them to enact laws and policies that respect the rights of these categories of vulnerable persons. I will leave it at that, Madam Vice Chair, and I give you back the floor. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor, Madam Vice Chair. My salutations to all the participants at the press briefing, Today, the Protocol on the Rights of Older Persons has entered into force because it has obtained the 15 ratifications necessary for this entry into force. This protocol on the rights of older persons is a binding text that was drafted by the Commission at the request of states parties to protect specifically the rights of older persons. You know that in the African Charter, in Article 18, the African Charter has enumerated the categories of vulnerable persons. You have women, children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. For women, you have the Maputo Protocol. For children, you have the Charter on the welfare of the child. These protocols had already entered into force, and it was the disabled and the older persons that were left. The protocol for older persons entered into force earlier, and the last one to enter force is that on the rights of older persons. This protocol takes into account our realities as Africans on the relationship that we have with older persons. We know who the older persons are and the place that they occupy in a family. This protocol takes that into account to promote the dignity of older persons. This protocol also protects older persons against harmful practices. You know very well that in some countries, older persons are accused of witchcraft and other practices, and this protocol protects them. And I like to say that when we were at the last ordinary session in your country, when we had a discussion with your government had given its word and promised to ratify these two protocols, the protocol on the rights of older persons and the protocol on the right of people with disabilities, and they upheld their commitment. The Commissioner Lita, who's the country rapporteur of the Gambia, and myself, we sent a letter of commendation to your head of state because for keeping his word, because it was a special sign of honor and respect for the African Commission, and we urged him. And since we have the microphone, sir, we'd like to request that the Gambia deposits at the office of the legal counsel of the AU the instruments of ratification. This will make it possible for us to know that you have actually ratified. You can go back home and say to the older persons at home that they are being taken care of, they have been taken into account. In conformity with what the Vice Chair said, the older persons will now have rights that will be justiciable. And when older persons believe that the state or the other sections of the state have signed the protocol, they can seize the courts, and if they're not satisfied, they can come to the African Commission to lodge a complaint as explained, and we'll consider the situation. That is what I want to say. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me to also contribute. I would like to thank the questions that were already addressed, but I would also like to give my contribution in addition to the response by Commissioner Janet. The 11 commissioners have each one of them a mandate in certain areas, and also we are rapporteurs for specific countries, which means that each one of us has 5 countries to cover. For the 54 member states part to the charter, there is only one commissioner who is responsible for 4 countries. We therefore look into human rights related issues in 5 countries, in 5 portfolios. Commissioner Janet mentioned the issue of reporting, and reporting both for us as commissioners and for the member states as well. You can easily access this information and all these activities in our website, as well as the member states' reports under their obligations under Article 62. And you will find our activity in the period between the sessions. Madam Commissioner also mentioned the resolution. This is a tool that has a collegial organ we use to deliberate on matters that we discussed, and we came to the conclusion that it should come to public knowledge within the Commission. For instance, if you are to question how the working group on communication functions, you just have to access the website, and under the specific sector, you will find the members of this working group, and you will be able to follow and understand how we work and what we publish concerning Gambia and the world. Thank you.
de droits humains.
Being a body that is responsible for the protection of human, what is the Commission doing when it comes to countries that are affected, especially in terms of conflicts? Example, I can say Sudan. I'm sorry if I made mention of a country which is not supposed to be done. Is the Commission taking any step to eradicate or stop the conflict that is affecting the Sudanese people?
Thank you very much. Your question is noted. those are the last two questions. Okay. Your question, sir? Could you please speak close to the microphone?
Good afternoon. My name is Ankula Janko. I work for WDR and DW. My question, ma'am, would be, can you please, tell us some of the recommendations in the communique, which I feel is very important with regards to the human rights situations in West Africa in particular?
Thank you very much. I think that would be the last round of questions, and then we'll bring this to a close. Honorable Vice Chair, you have the questions?
Thank you very much for these questions have been asked. In terms of the, just to indicate that we've been joined by two commissioners, because Commissioner Samasasi Safa was introduced, Commissioner Abomo, Commissioner Manuela. We've also been joined by our colleague, Commissioner Lita Musimi Ogana, who is the country rapporteur for the Gambia, in addition to other responsibilities that she has in terms of her mandate in the Commission, dealing with indigenous persons and dealing with the human rights of people affected and living with HIV/AIDS. And then we have also Commissioner Hatem, who is the country rapporteur of Sudan. So there's nothing wrong with mentioning a country, because in this commission, we are very transparent. And if you are following the proceedings of the session, you will find that so many observers, some of the NGOs actually mention the human rights situation in Sudan. And apart from that, also, there was a dedicated panel. You know, I mentioned there were several panels. The time is very short. I cannot mention each of them. But there was a panel dedicated to the human rights situation in Sudan and what the Commission is doing. I can just give you a brief overview to say that the Commission is fully engaged with Sudan. So many steps have been taken. Press statements have been issued. And we also plan to launch a full-fledged fact-finding mission in Sudan in terms of the human rights violations. But having said that, I will allow the Commissioner Rapporteur of Sudan, who takes the lead on the situation in Sudan, to just shed light on work that has been done in Sudan. Because I will just say that as the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Women in Africa, the situation in Sudan is very disheartening. The gross and massive violation of rights generally, but in particular of women's rights, where women's bodies are being used as part of the battleground, is a cause for concern for all. And it's really unacceptable, unconscionable. But then I'll allow Honorable Commissioner Hatem to just say a few things about the situation in Sudan. And conflict generally, the human rights situation, you asked a specific question about the human rights situation in West Africa in terms of the communique, but the communique did not have, I don't know whether you are following, the communique did not have any specific mention of the human rights situation in West Africa. It's the human rights situation in Africa globally, and the panels did not deliberate generally. I think if you talk about West Africa, somebody asked the question about a statement that was made on behalf of Gambia, which actually is in West Africa. So every statement that is made in during the ordinary session, as Commissioner Manuel has indicated, every commissioner has a country that they have responsibility for. I have 5 countries. Commissioner Abomo has 5 countries. Commissioner Manuela has 5 countries. Commissioner Lita, Commissioner Hatem. We all have countries that we have responsibility for. So whenever recommendations are made regarding any particular country that we have responsibility for, of the 54 member states, the country rapporteurs will follow through to engage. I had mentioned that before. So whether you're in West Africa, North Africa, East or South Africa, once you're within the continent, the country rapporteurs will engage. Sometimes you find that there will be a country rapporteur and a thematic rapporteur, because the thematic rapporteur, these are now the mandate holders. Honorable Commissioner Abomo did indicate that when the Gambia ratified the instrument, she worked together, and that's how we work at the Commission. The country rapporteur of the Gambia collaborated with her, and a letter of commendation was sent. If there's a grave concern also concerning any particular country, the country rapporteur, together with the thematic mandate holder, the thematic mandate holder are, you know, the rights under the in the charter or any instrument can be divided into several themes. I mentioned women's rights. We also mentioned older persons, persons with disability, migrants. Those are the themes. Prisons and policies in Africa, HIV/AIDS, indigenous persons, death penalty, torture. So if it is something that relates to torture, it will be happening within a member state. The country rapporteur, together with the thematic mandate holder, will come together and engage on it. Either you are sending a letter of commendation where something good happens, because we are very fair. When something good happens, we comment. When something bad happens, we actually send press releases or letters of urgent appeal to the head of state for investigation to be carried out and for action to be taken. I'll just allow Honorable Commissioner Hatem, the country rapporteur of Sudan, to highlight more on the situation in Sudan and what we've done so far, in addition to what I've said. And I'll also allow Honorable Commissioner Lethe to just say, as the country rapporteur of the Gambia, she cannot be here and not say something to talk about her concerns and also the appeal that because the members of the press, you're called the fourth estate, and you're a vital stakeholder when it comes to the promotion and protection of human rights. And as a Gambian, I'm a Gambian, but I'm a commissioner in the African Commission. I would like to see in the papers where after the session, you actually amplify the issues that may have emanated from the session. The final communique and all the documents that we deliberated on during this session are on the website of the Commission. You can easily bring them down and raise awareness on them. So this is a call to you to make sure that you can do that. But I'll allow my colleague commissioners to also contribute to this dialogue, because this is a press conference by the Commission. So commissioners have something to say. Commissioner Hatem, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Merci pour l'introduction que vous aviez faite concernant la question qui nous préoccupe le plus en ce moment à la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, le drame qui se joue au Soudan. Notre commission, depuis le déclenchement des hostilités au Soudan, le 15 avril 2003, nous n'avons cessé de suivre la situation et de dénoncer toutes les exactions qui ont eu lieu dans ce pays. Et comme l'a dit Madame la Présidente, nous avions commencé par des communiqués de presse pour alerter l'opinion africaine.
Statement to draw African and international opinion to the situation. And we also adopted resolutions which call for the cessation of the conflict and an end to the grave violations. Currently, unfortunately, our brothers and sisters of Sudan have 10 million people displaced internally or living as refugees in the neighboring countries. The number of victims, which may not be precise, could even go beyond 18,000 victims. And the main victims are young girls, women, and the older persons. As we are at this press conference, there's still war raging in Al-Fasher in Darfur, where civilians have been victims of airstrikes. And our commission, which as an organ of the AU, called for the cessation of the violence. But unfortunately, we need to have efforts by the international community and African countries to bring an end to this deadly conflict. Following the appeal by the AUPSC, we decided during our last session in May to establish a fact-finding mission which will be sent to Sudan. And a lot of commissioners were willing to participate in the mission. And we have the special rapporteur on women and children, given the number of women and children who have been victims of grave violations. We also have the special rapporteur on refugees and migrants who were expected to be part of the fact-finding mission, as well as the focal point on reprisals, Commissioner Desu, as well as my sister Lita Ogana, will also be part of that mission. We wanted to go there as early as possible, but there have been two major obstacles which need to be addressed so that we can go and carry out the firefighting mission. We need authorization from the Sudanese government as well as the neighboring countries in order to be able to investigate and listen to the refugees and displaced persons. We also have a second obstacle, which is a major one, that is financial. That is AU funds. The funds available will not enable us to go there as expected. And during our last session, we decided that we should maybe send a few number of commissioners and the number that I indicated initially. But at least we could have 2 or 3 commissioners with legal experts to assist us on the ground so that we can able to work on the ground and meet with the victims and take stock of the situation there. And once we finish with the fact-finding mission, we will continue with our investigations virtually by listening to the victims virtually. So, in brief, this is the status of the situation, and we continue to be seized of it. And on daily basis, we have engagement with civil society groups and NGOs present in Sudan or in the neighboring countries to enable us to monitor the situation. So, Chair, I give you back the floor.
Or every member state, I should say, of the Charter in terms of human rights violations once it's brought to our attention, once we're aware of it. And these days, we also have a communication team that actually monitors what happens around the continent, and they bring it to our attention. We also have our partners, the NGOs, and the National Human Rights Institution on the ground, who actually bring matters to our attention. And I'll repeat, the Fourth Estate is also one vital constituency that should be in a position to bring matters to our attention. I just wanted you to, the Commissioner Rapporteur of the Gambia, just to supplement issues arising from this session relevant, because one of the things I want to highlight is in terms of collaborating with thematic mandate holders and country rapporteur, just to highlight the fact that when the situation in the Gambia arose with regard to the FGM, I collaborated with her in terms of urgent letter of appeal, press statements, and of course, eventually, letter of commendation, up to ultimately. So this is what we do, and this is how we operate, and these are the mechanisms we have that are available to us at the African Commission. Honorable Commissioner Letha, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, VC, for this opportunity. Good morning, members of the Fourth Estate. In my capacity as a country rapporteur, let me echo this morning's appreciation by the chairperson of the Commission for the work that the people of the Gambia are doing for the Commission, welcoming us to this country, for us to stay here for a whole month. It is our second home. As a matter of fact, we say Banjul is the Geneva of Africa. It is the human rights capital of Africa. Also to say that with regard to the Gambia, in the last session we had a lot of work to do because it happened when the FGM Act was facing some challenges. And we saw the mobilization that the country put in place. We saw the support that the president himself, the government, the National Assembly, women leaders in this country, with the mobilization support from the vice chairperson, and how we work together to have that pushback. And so we want to say that Gambia did a very important thing for Africa, because when one country rolls back, the others start quoting. And so as a country rapporteur, I was very happy and very pleased that the act was retained. Secondly, to say that being the home of the human rights in Africa, we have to lead by example. I will be coming on a promotion mission to listen to different stakeholders on their own, views of how the country is handling human rights issues. We are very transparent. When we go to a member state on a promotion mission, we meet literally all the stakeholders. And we hope this will happen next year. The fact that we come here for sessions every so often does not mean that we have the time to go out and meet the people. So we will truly need a dedicated trip to come and do a country promotion mission in the Gambia to meet the people in their own surroundings, listen to them, and the stakeholders. And to say that between the last session and this session, we have had a lot of communication with His Excellency President Adama Barrow. First, it was on FGM. We wrote to him on letters of concern, and then we got positive action. Then we had to write to him to commend him. Before we finished, we had the protocol for people with disability. Gambia also led in ratifying. We wrote to him again to commend him. And I want to say that this kind of interaction, immediate interaction that the Commission has with heads of states, can bear fruits very fast. And I want to give examples with Egypt, which I'm also the country rapporteur. In Egypt, we wrote to the president for his mercy to release some prisoners who were on the death row. And what the president did, he released 600 prisoners. And although the 6 that we were asking are not the ones released, that shows that the government is showing some goodwill. It shows that member states actually listen. It shows that heads of states actually read our letters. And this is very important because when the head of state is moved, then we can have a presidential directive which can literally change the terrain of human rights in a country. And so mine is to just say that with respect to the Gambia, as a country rapporteur, I come here very often, but I am yet to come on a promotion mission. I thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. I think that will be the last intervention. But I will just wrap up by saying that within the context of a promotion mission, it may interest you to know that during the session, in our private session, we also deliberated on the report of the promotion mission of Lesotho and Tanzania. And also during the course of the year, we carried our promotion mission to Comoros, where we went in country. We carried a promotion mission to Angola, where we went in country, and a promotion mission to Cabo Verde. So this is the work we do. But like the Commissioner has indicated, a promotion mission is dependent on authorization. We cannot go in country without having authorization. So the Commissioner will be requesting for authorization, and if granted, it will be useful to have a promotion mission because, as she rightly observed, we in the human rights capital, we have to lead by example. But I thank you all, and I think I'll hand over to Samantha at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you to all the members of the High Table. I'd like to maybe once again express gratitude to you for joining this session to shed light on the various work that the Commission has done and the journey that we've traveled for the 81st Ordinary Session. Particularly, Vice Chair, I'd like to thank you for the clarion call that you've made in once again reminding members of the media that they are a key constituency in ensuring that human rights in the continent are upheld, and also asking them to play an active role in their reporting about the work of the Commission, to also apply a human rights lens when they're even writing these stories of violations. And then maybe to members of the media to perhaps maybe reiterate, we do have a website, and on our website we also have a tab on special mechanisms. If you click on each of the special mechanisms, it will give you up-to-date information on what each special mechanism is doing, the press releases, the letters of concern, all of the publications that the Commission has issued. But also we are on social media. We are on Twitter, which is now X. We are also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on YouTube. So if you could kindly follow our social media, you would be able to get up-to-date information. Once again, Commissioners, thank you for joining this press conference. It is now closed. Thank you, Commissioners. You may be released.